Hello, everyone. This is Anna Pacheco with SantaFe101.com. My guest today is Janet Lovato with Exit Advantage Realty of New Mexico. Janet, do I have your permission to record this interview?
Yes, you do, ma'am.
Oh, good. And so you focus in primarily, I guess you mentioning you do a little bit of real estate sales in Rio Arriba, a little bit in Los Alamos, but you kind of really focus, one of your main focuses is Sandoval County. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
around Jemez Springs, Ponderosa, Rio Rancho. Yes.
Okay. So for people that might be watching this today, and for me as well, educate me as to like Jemez Springs. I mean, I know a little bit about Rio Rancho, but some of the
Right.
other areas that you just mentioned, are those primarily rural areas or so educate us.
Yes. 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 So the Jemez Springs is which is located within the Jemez Valley area, and it's a community with several different small communities that makes up the Jemez Valley, where my family actually is from and where my family grew up. If you're coming in from I-25 and you're going towards Bernalillo, you're going to go up towards the Jemez. You'll start with in Zia Pueblo is kind of the start of the Jemez Valley, and also with San Isidro, New Mexico, and then you're kind of going through the valley and you'll hit Jemez Pueblo, and then off to the right there's a little town called Ponderosa, New Mexico. That's where my family's from. And then if you keep going up Highway 4 up through the Jemez, you'll hit Cañon, New Mexico, and you'll also hit Jemez Springs, and then all the way up to, if you can either go towards Cuba or you can go towards Los Alamos. And so that whole Jemez Valley area, I like to work in. And of course, being in Los Alamos, I get clients that want to live up in the Jemez, have the short commute to the national labs there, and that want to live in a rural area where the population is really small. It's not that much. It has a lot of culture in the Jemez, a lot of mountains, a lot of recreation. There's hot springs. There's a lot of religious community in the Jemez. There's a lot. We have a Buddha Mandali Zen Center there in Jemez Springs that people go and learn how to meditate or whatnot. There's lots of historic buildings from the pueblos that have been there. The Jemez Monument's a great place to go visit. It's just got a lot of culture, a lot of people. The people are real nice, and of course it's the mountains. And so you can go from being in the pines up in Jemez Springs and Cerro Los Pinos to being down below in the Piñons where Ponderosa is in San Isidro. So it's kind of it's a different little area, but it's a large area of Sandoval County, and I think it's a great area to live actually.
And so what is the commute from those areas if you do work at the lab in Los Alamos? How long would it take you to get there?
So it just depends. Right now you could get the first community there from Los Alamos. It's only a 30-minute drive to the Los Alamos National Labs. Some of the areas even 20 minutes.
Wow.
And if you keep on going down to Jemez Springs, it's about 45 minutes to an hour to the lab. But then granted, on the other side, to get to Albuquerque and Rio Rancho, it's only about an hour to 45-minute drive, depending on which side of the Jemez. So a lot of people will live kind of in the middle, Jemez Springs, Ponderosa. One of the spouses might, work in Albuquerque, and the other one might work in Los Alamos. So it's a real good central location to be at if you don't mind commuting and you want to be around away from people and kind of just have that option to go either Los Alamos or Albuquerque.
Well, it sounds like a viable option in the sense that there's never been a lot of availability in terms of housing in Los Alamos proper, is because it's so small anyway.
No.
So and I think now
Correct.
I know the lab in the last couple of years has done a lot more, had a big push in terms of hiring more people. So there's even less,
Correct.
housing opportunities in Los Alamos and in White Rock. So that sounds like a viable, option. So you're saying it is rural though. I mean, so you're selling like what,
Yes.
2-acre lots, or how are the houses? Is there like a development out there? What would people be buying?
Not necessarily development. There are some already, homes available. There's some subdivisions, the Cerro Los Pinos subdivision. There's also La Cueva, which is an area in Jemez Springs that has, some private land. Most of the private land has homes on it, but there is still raw land available where you can get anywhere from a half an acre up to, 100 acres available in the Jemez. So there's still, a lot of opportunity to go up there and to purchase a piece of land and to build your dream home. There's plenty of raw pieces of land in the Jemez Red Rock area. That's a real beautiful area in the Red Rocks, real private there, that still has a lot of availability to build. And then there are also more established homes in the area as well that have already built that, have been going on the market.
And are the houses?
But like anything,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like anything in the market here in New Mexico, the Jemez sales have really jumped in the last 6 to 8 months. Historically, they've had probably about 20 houses on the market, every year, and they average about 150 days on the market. But recently, we're down to like 3 homes on the market, and the average days are down in the 20s. So things are even picking up in the Jemez. But there's still opportunity. There's also, the Jemez, so it is rural. People tend not to sell during the winter months. So this is typically the slower side anyways, but it has definitely picked up. We have seen, people saying, okay, I'm going to get out of the city. I'm going to get out of Los Alamos and just, live up in the Jemez, which is good for sellers that are looking to sell. And there's still opportunity to build. So there's still raw land available.
And then these houses that, the existing houses that are out there, are they old adobe homes, or are they tract homes, or is it a mix?
No, they're mainly custom homes, which is nice. So there's not really any standard builder up there. We have a range of custom homes, manufactured homes. We do have a small array of adobe homes, not many. A lot of them are custom homes with custom builders that went up there and built. And of course, the modular homes. And we also have some, depending on where at in the Jemez that you're wanting to purchase, down little south, more towards San Isidro and Ponderosa, you'll get more adobes, more traditional homes. Whereas up north where the snow is and where the mountains are, you'll get more custom homes and more cabins. So it's kind of like a range of homes there.
And I know it's probably, it sounds, because it's so varied. Can you still maybe give, for people that might be watching this, just kind of what would you get for, say, $250,000? What could you get out in that area?
Right. You can get a fairly nice home for $250 still. You can still get, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, probably around 1,200 square foot right now for about $250. Right now, the cheapest home on the market is $130,000, but that is a 900 square foot tiny home, kind of in the middle of the mountain up on the top of it right now. But then there's also a $450,000 home on the river. So it just depends on where at in the community, and people's taste is so different from one part of the Jemez to the other. So there's not really, it's changes. It just depends on the home. It's actually kind of funny because the homes traditionally in the Jemez are a lot cheaper than Los Alamos, of course. So people are still coming over and buying, but they're granted.
I think we're frozen.
Uh-oh, I think that's my internet. Sorry about that.
So that's my next question. I'm glad this happened. This is a nice segue. Tell me about,
right.
I mean, are people up in the Jemez, are they getting satellites to help them with the internet? Because people are wanting to work remote. I mean, can work remote, but if they don't have internet, that's not going to work.
Exactly. That is actually the internet between Bernalillo all the way up to Jemez Springs to La Cueva, actually up Highway 4, is actually really good. They have a fiber optic that they installed a few years ago. So Windstream actually internet fiber optic is really good for that corridor. Up further north, they're having to use like Viasat or HughesNet satellite internet. But then in Cerro Los Pinos, Los Alamos Net is actually in the process right now of putting a fiber optic satellite where they just need a line of sight for their internet access. So that community that's only a half an hour from Los Alamos National Labs is finally getting faster, more reliable internet service here in the next month or so. So
And
that's a
where are
good
you?
plus.
We just have this break in our communication. Where are you?
Right. Actually, right now, I'm in Los Alamos. Typically, I'd be in between here in Los Alamos in my home, and then also in Ponderosa over there in my home there. So I'd go back and forth. So right now, though, I'm in Los Alamos. You'd think my internet would be stable, but I guess just with everybody working remotely right now and doing online school, it takes its toll.
Right. So Rio Rancho, let's talk about Rio Rancho now, because I know that Santa Fe is my hometown, and virtually all of Santa Fe now lives in Rio Rancho because they can no longer afford to live in Santa Fe, and they commute into work at the state capitol. So if you can just give us some background, because I'm thinking, not everybody who might be seeing this interview is going to have tons of money, and maybe they can't qualify for $1 million mortgage, but so maybe Rio Rancho would be a viable option. It's a pretty area.
Definitely.
So let's talk a little bit about real estate in Rio Rancho.
Yeah, definitely. Like for instance, I have clients here in Los Alamos that they're closing next week in Rio Rancho because for the type of home that they're going to get a 2,800 square foot home for $260,000. That same home in Los Alamos would cost over $600,000.
And it's going to be a new home, right?
And it's a newer home. Yes, it's a newer home. It's only 5 years old. And so they're really getting the huge home that they want, the bedrooms, a 3-car garage, the half-acre lot, all for around $260,000. So it's very affordable for them to commute. He's willing to make that hour drive commute. And fortunately, right now, the lab is kind of on a abbreviated schedule where they only have to work 2 days on, 2 days remotely. But even at that, he's willing to make that commitment to commute to Los Alamos from Rio Rancho. And so it's definitely a great city, and they're thriving right now. They're still building, there's still developments going on. So I think it's a great option for people that can't afford Santa Fe or Los Alamos or any of those other areas to move out to Rio Rancho.
And
get a really nice home.
Albuquerque is the largest city in New Mexico, followed by Las Cruces, and then Rio Rancho, and then Santa Fe. So Rio Rancho, which started out of nothing, basically like in the 1970s, if I'm not mistaken, it is now the third largest city, and it's got its own municipality. It's it's a city. It's not a bedroom community of Albuquerque.
It is not. It is growing, and there's still space to grow. There's still so much area to develop in Rio Rancho. There's still so many. You can still buy an empty lot to build for $10,000. All the way up to $50,000, closer to Rio Rancho city limits. So there's still opportunities to buy a piece of land and get a really nice custom home built in Rio Rancho.
And so that's a real, like you said, it's a viable option, because again, not everybody who's wanting to move to New Mexico now is, because even if you have a good job, and if one of the spouses has a good job, and if you have children, you have car payments, you have insurances, you have a lot of other expenses. And so, it makes sense. And the nice thing about Rio Rancho too is because it is more affordable, you are seeing younger families with kids where there's little league, and there's, like where I live in Santa Fe, you rarely see kids anymore. The demographics has changed so much because everybody's been priced out, or many people have been priced out of Santa Fe, that you don't have those like neighborhoods that where you have little league, and it's just kind of a nicer option for younger families, for sure.
It really is. There's lots of parks. Rio Rancho is planned really well to where there are parks throughout, and there's stores nearby. It's just I feel really safe there. I feel like there's some great communities there. So I think it's a very good option for newer families.
And then in terms of transportation, I think there are newer roads, and aren't they, if I'm not mistaken, I read something that they're building something from Bernalillo to Rio Rancho right now, or they're expanding a roadway.
Yes, they're expanding five 550. They're making it 3 lanes on each side to get from I-25 into Rio Rancho to get that commute down that time right now. So they're expanding that roadway, getting it a little easier commute for people to get on I-25.
Yeah, and so so there are people that, like I said, all of Santa Fe now, not all of Santa Fe, but many local Santa Feans that commute into Santa Fe to work at the state capitol, but they now live in Rio Rancho because they can get like you said, for $260,000, a really nice house. You can spread out, you can have a yard and different things. Yeah. So I guess for our listeners who are people that might be listening, so Sandoval County also encompasses part of Albuquerque, correct? It's Bernalillo and Sandoval, or because Albuquerque's pretty big now. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, Albuquerque is pretty big. But Sandoval just has, oh, is my internet getting to you again?
That's okay. This is just perfect. It's good that people see some of the, it's really everybody. I mean, so many people are going to be able to work remotely now going forward. A lot of the major corporations have announced that, but it's good to know, these are some of the challenges that, we will have,
it is very
kind of spotty.
Yes.
But you were saying, but isn't Albuquerque, at least a portion of it is also part of Sandoval County, if I'm not mistaken?
Well, the boundary is kind of Bernalillo County and Albuquerque, Sandoval and Rio Rancho there. But yes, you could still, a lot of it, Albuquerque and Bernalillo and Sandoval County kind of meet up. You kind of don't really notice when you're on Paseo del Norte, whenever you've passed Sandoval into Albuquerque. It's kind of all intermingled right now. It's kind of, you don't really notice the boundary of Sandoval County until you actually get into Rio Rancho.
So people that are watching this, just so you know, so there are 33 counties in New Mexico. And if you were running for political state office, if you do really well in Sandoval and especially Bernalillo County, you basically have won the election just because of the sheer number of people. At least I think we're at 2.35 million people in the state of New Mexico right now, and virtually half of that is in the Albuquerque metropolitan area. So that would encompass, I think, Las Lunas is that Torrance County or Valencia County? So that goes, but Las Lunas is considered kind of like that Albuquerque metropolitan area as well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so you were mentioning that you said, well, you have a house here. I mean, how many houses do you live in?
I actually have two homes and a rental property in Cerro Los Pinos. So I have the home here in Los Alamos, and then the home in the Jemez Springs that I rent out, and then a home in Ponderosa.
And do you try to spend in the summer months when it's really beautiful? Are you out there?
Oh yeah, I love to go up to the Jemez. I mean, that is my home. I'm always out there, going to the hot springs. My favorite place is the Jemez Springs hot springs. We could go in there.
I've not been to the hot springs up there. Are they kind of like outdoor, or anybody can use them, or are they kind of like Ojo Caliente now, where it's kind of it's more regulated and it's a fancy what is
actually like? There's actually several of different of them. There's about 3 major outdoor ones that people will go outdoors and soak, but then they also have the Jemez Springs bathhouse where you can get a private tub and soak in the hot springs water. And then also there's that Jemez Springs, which was the formerly Giggling Springs, also there in the middle of town, where you can go and pay, and they're beautiful grounds like Ojo Caliente. They don't have massages right now, but they do have a little cottage that you could Airbnb and go in and soak. They have 5 pools, and they clean them daily, and they're just, it's just relaxing. It's really, really nice just to go there. It's real quick, go soak for an hour, and you don't have to hike. There are places that people love to go hike to, which is, the Spence Hot Springs or the San Antonio Hot Springs or McCully Hot Springs. People will still go hiking on the outdoors and enjoy that. But there's also, if you wanted something real quick, swimsuits, relaxation, you can go there in town. And then at the Jemez Springs bathhouse, they have, like I said, the individual tubs where you can soak, but they also have massages and facials and herbal wraps, and it's just really relaxing and real nice, real gems of the Jemez, I call them.
Well, and I know, like in Las Vegas, New Mexico, like as you're leaving or there are areas where you can just like climb the mountains and you just take off your clothes and jump in some hot springs. So you can find that
Yep.
there. And I know the other neat thing about Ojo Caliente that they used to do there is that on Tuesdays for New Mexicans, it was like half price or something. So I think that that's the nice thing, that some of these businesses up where they have hot springs that they do try to cater to New Mexicans when they can. And in terms of the proximity
Yes.
to Jemez Pueblo, how close are the hot springs to the Pueblo? Or is the Pueblo, I mean, is that part of the, you know, in terms of the larger area that you're describing in terms of real estate, is that
Right.
like part of the community as well, or?
Yes, yes. The Jemez Pueblo is definitely part of the Jemez Valley. It's a short little 10-minute drive from the start of the hot springs there, and Jemez Springs is Jemez Pueblo. So it's real close to the Pueblo, and you know, they're considered, you know, part of the Jemez Valley, part of, you know, the whole area and the culture. So
Yeah, and then just for
it's all
people that
there.
might be listening, so Jemez Pueblo is the only Pueblo. We have 19 distinct Pueblos in New Mexico. Jemez Pueblo is the only Pueblo that speaks the language of Towa. And back in
Correct.
the mid 1800s, the Pueblo of Pecos also spoke Towa, but then they dwindled down to like 17 people, so they asked to join Jemez Pueblo. And the other
Yes.
interesting thing about the Jemez Mountains up there is that the Jemez Mountains are at the end of the 3,000-mile Rocky Mountain mile chain that starts in Canada. So just little tidbits about
Correct.
that.
Yes.
So we're
Yeah.
basically done. This has been a great conversation. Is there anything as a realtor that you want to add? You know, all of your contact details are going to be included with this video. So people, you know, they should definitely look you up, because it sounds like a really, it sounds like a viable option that, you know, if you have a job, you have employment up in Los Alamos. But anything else you want to include before we sign off here?
I just want to include, you know, Los Alamos, the Jemez, Rio Rancho, all those areas have, you know, their different perks and their different experiences, but the Jemez really just has that culture and that rural area to just get away. And so you know, that's of course where my heart is, where my home is. But, you know, if the mountains aren't your thing, definitely Rio Rancho. I just think New Mexico is just, you know, one of the best places with our four seasons. And with the people, you know, here are just great. And I just think we're just very lucky to be here in New Mexico right now.
And you mentioned to me, you're in some type of a leadership role, something to do with New Mexico, the state of New Mexico.
Yes, yes.
What's that? Tell me a little bit about that.
I just became a member of the New Mexico Association of Realtors, director, to help them represent the Los Alamos community realtors, and also of course Sandoval, since I'm there. So I'm going to be joining a leadership role to help kind of help out on some committees, and just to help with legislation on realtors, and just really help get you know, my clients, their voice heard in the legislations, their voice and their needs of the community heard. So I'm excited to be joining that.
To you. We need young people in leadership roles. So you
Yes.
go, girl. You go. Listen, thank you so much. And then in 2021, we'll have you back on the program to discuss some of the other aspects of you know, summer in the Jemez or something. How's that?
Yes, definitely. I would love to. Well, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.